everyone, this is Doxy Mom and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't done so already, I'd greatly appreciate if you hit that little red subscribe button. You can ring the bell for notifications, and if you like this video, just give it a thumbs up. Well, Miss Valentine and I, we're here to bring you the news in 15 minutes or less, so let's get started. Now guys, back in post 4159-17, he sent us to the U.S. House of Representative documents and interviews that have been declassified, and I chose to look at James Clapper's interview, and I just wanted to hit some highlights with you. Now, I've only gotten through 40 of the 106 pages that this document is, and I will link it, so if you want to go over there, you can read it yourself. You'll just have to come down and find James Clapper's name, and it's a PDF, and you just click on it, and all those pages will come up. But Clapper was asked several interesting things by Mr. Rooney, and the first was, so, are you aware of any evidence that the vote outcome of the 2016 presidential election was manipulated through cyber means? And Clapper says, no. However, Clapper believes the Russians have tried to interfere with our elections for decades. He thinks the Russians in this election wanted to sow discord, that Putin didn't like Clinton, and that they just thought that President Trump would be easier to deal with. Now, even though Clapper's intelligence officer for Russia came in and made this statement, he said, in terms of favoring one candidate over another, the evidence is a bit unclear. So Clapper, he says that that's not really correct. He kind of tries to explain why that's wrong, but he really can't. And it's clear that Clapper wants this committee to think that the Russians helped Trump get elected, but that's just not the case. Then Clapper says, we didn't do an assessment of all 50,000 polling places in the U.S., nor could we. We didn't see any evidence of the Russians influencing or manipulating voter tallies. Let that sink in, guys. Then Mr. Rooney said, well, you had testified in the past that you saw no evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Is that still the case, or has that changed? And Clapper answered, well, no, it's not. I never saw any direct empirical evidence that the Trump campaign or someone in it was plotting, conspiring with the Russians to meddle with the election. Well, that's very important, guys. Then they started talking about leaks, because the media leaks were a key strategy in trying to take candidate Trump then down. And Clapper, he says, well, I don't know who was responsible for the leaks. For the record, I didn't leak anything. And then they moved to the dossier. Clapper said he first became aware of it when John Brennan called him and called it to his attention. Clapper said they decided to enclose a 1.5-page summary of the dossier into the intelligence community assessment in the highly classified version of it. Mr. Rooney asked if they had tried to validate the dossier, and Clapper said, yeah, and the reason we handled it that way was precisely because we could not corroborate, and then it's blanked out, redacted. But Mr. Rooney asked, did he confirm or corroborate the contents of the dossier with CNN journalist Jake Tapper? And Clapper says, well, by the time of that they already knew about it. Many media outlets had the dossier for some time. And then, of course, Clapper went on there and talked about it. Clapper was asked if he had any idea how they got it, and Clapper said, I do not. Clapper said he did not brief President Obama on the Flynn Kislyak call. And then Clapper was asked this, and this is from page 36. This is very important. Mr. Rooney asked, did you brief President Obama on any other intelligence involving the Trump campaign or transition team? And this is what Clapper says. Well, we had, by brief, I would include PDB, that's Presidential Daily Briefing, articles that were reported, and of course, ODNI has a responsibility for the PDB. So there was a series of reports through the summer and into the fall about, in general, Russian activity, that sort of thing. The only time I actually had a briefing on the subject, if you want to call it that, was when the intelligence community assessment came out. We sent it to the White House first. My recollection is the morning of the 5th of January. Wasn't that infamous meeting where Susan Rice sent that email to herself saying everything was up and up in this meeting, where Sally Yates, Susan Rice, James Comey, Joe Biden, John Brennan, James Clapper, and Obama, and they were all at that meeting. And guys, that's where we believe, that's where they talked about setting up President Trump with collusion lies. Now, Clapper goes on to say, and that afternoon I had a meeting with the Senate Armed Services Committee. I remember that very distinctly. And then the next day, because we felt obliged, since President Obama had tasked us to brief him first. Well, you can't tell me that Obama did not know. And then he goes on to say, the next day we briefed the Gang of 8 here in the early morning, and then flew up to New York and briefed the president-elect and his team on the 6th of January. Then Rooney asked, do you know how Deputy Attorney General Yates learned of the Flynn Kislyak call? And Clapper says, well, I surmise that, blanked out, redacted. So I'm assuming it was done under that basis. So we don't know what's going on there. But Mr. Rooney says, so you weren't with her when she learned of it. And so he's basically saying, Clapper's saying, no, I was not with Sally Yates. And then Rooney asked her on January 12th of 2017, do you know how many people had knowledge of the Flynn Kislyak phone call? And Clapper basically says, no, I don't. And then Rooney says, yeah, no, the reason for this line of questioning is we're obviously trying to figure out how something like this becomes available to the people in the Washington Post and David Ignatius and the like. Do you have? Clapper says, that's a great question. I guess the inference, though, it could have been from a lot of sources. Excuse me. So Clapper testified he did not brief Obama on the Flynn Kislyak calls. Sally Yates, she learned about the calls from Obama himself during that meeting, and Comey testified he didn't brief Obama, even though the intelligence was from the FBI. So that leaves Susan Rice likely briefed Obama because of her widespread use of the unmasked intelligence at the end of the Obama administration. Then Rooney goes on and asks about the vice president. He says, when vice president, I think elect at that point, Pence, defended General Flynn on television, publicly claiming that Flynn told him the calls weren't related to sanctions, did you have any communication with Vice President-elect Pence regarding the nature of those calls after he made those statements? And James Clapper says, no, I did not. I think that appearance, if I remember correctly, was on the 17th of January. Rooney says, right. Clapper says, and I was very alarmed by it, being aware of, and all I saw, by the way, was a gist of the conversation, redacted. But I was very concerned about it. I felt that needed to be raised with the White House. And I did breach that I discussed that with both John Brennan and ultimately Director Comey I think I did that. I had that discussion the evening of the 19th of January, but I did not raise it directly with the Vice President-elect. Now, guys, that's as far as I've gotten. However, no evidence of collusion. Yet, Spygate, a.k.a. the treasonous coup, it continued anyway. And then I found a video by Jesse Waters, and I'll link it. And in the video, it's saying no one in the Obama administration had any evidence of Russian collusion, even though many of them went on national television and said they did. Guys, they lied. They never thought she would lose. And yes, Obama knew. Now, James Clapper, Andy McCabe, Susan Rice, all top Obama people who testified under oath, they all said they had no evidence of collusion, and they spied anyway. And they will go down for this. Don't you worry. Now, Jesse Waters, and I'm going to quote him. This is what he says. These people are evil. They're sick. And I hate them for what they did to this country. And I'll never forgive them for what they did to Michael Flynn. End quote. Now, the DOJ said there was no basis for James Comey to send in FBI agents to interview General Flynn. And this had nothing to do with a legitimate investigation. Flynn's call with Kislyak was perfectly legal. Flynn did not violate the Logan Act, and he did not commit perjury. Obama's administration needed Flynn gone because he was about to uncover this illegal spying of the Trump team by Obama. They had to get rid of Flynn to continue their coup, which the president has already called treason. And guys, I promise you, my wonderful subscribers, these people will go to prison. I've still heard from a couple of people that James Comey has been arrested. I know it's not been in the news. I don't know if they're keeping it quiet. I don't know if he's been arrested. I'm just telling you what I've heard from now 2 other people. So, we'll just have to wait and see, guys. But I will link the declassified information and this Jesse Waters video. And before I leave you with the Bible verse, guys, I probably won't be with you maybe the next couple of days. We do have the funeral for my aunt today. I want to say thank you for all your kind words and your condolences. They just touched my heart and has eased this difficult time for our family. But I am going to leave you with Ephesians 4:14 through 16, and then I will be back with you just as soon as I can. Paul says, then we will no longer be infants tossed back and forth by the waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and by the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of Him who is the head, that is Christ. From Him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. Well, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, this is Doxy Mom, and God bless you all.